Hi, and welcome to Cooking in Mike's Backyard. Today we're going to be making pastrami. It's a long process. It's like bacon. It's going to take about 14 days from today to finished product. There's a couple ways to make it shorter. I'll discuss them during the video. But what you need to start out with is with a brisket. Okay, so as I explained in my brisket video, the brisket's composed of two parts of meat, the point end and the flat end. I don't like to smoke them together, so what I'm going to do is we separated out the flat end, and this is going to be our pastrami. All right, so in order to convert your brisket into a pastrami, you're going to need to cure it, soak it in a brine for about 14 days. Now the brine is 2 cups of kosher salt, 1 cup of granulated sugar, white sugar, half a cup of brown sugar, 1/4 cup of curing salts, 1 teaspoon of mustard seed, 1 teaspoon of coriander, 2 tablespoons of pickling spice. Pickling spice is a blend. It's got allspice in it, cinnamon sticks, bay leaves, just a bunch of great stuff. You can get it pre-mixed, or you can look online for your own recipe for it. Then you also add in 4 crushed garlic, basically cloves of garlic. All right, and then to this, you're going to add 3 quarts of warm water. All right, you're going to mix this all up and bring it to a boil. I can do it outside, but you might have to go inside for this. Okay, so we've gotten the brine to a boil. Just has to boil for a second. You want to basically make all those seeds get absorbed with water and all that flavor come out. And if you were to smell it, you can't smell it because it's a video, but if you were to smell it, it smells like pastrami at this point. So what you do is, as you recall, this is 3 quarts of water. This is also 3 quarts of ice water. This is a food-safe container. You could probably do the same thing in a pan, but because I have these, it makes it a lot easier. So put the 3 quarts of ice water in, and then take the boiled brine and pour that right in there. What you want to do, okay, make sure you get the spices out of there. Just mix it around a little bit so that it's not boiling hot. Make sure all the ice melts up. And then you take your brisket and put it into the brine. Put the lid on. It's going to sit in the refrigerator for 14 days. Check it every day or every other day and flip the meat over. And then once it's done curing, we'll go to the next step. All right, so the brisket's been soaking now for 2 weeks. We're going to take it out of the brine and rinse it in cold water. All right, so you just take it out of the brine. You can do this in your kitchen sink. You just need to rinse it. I'm going to do it outside because it's a nice day out. Just get the excess brine off and any spices that are clinging from the brine. So after you rinse it, you just shake off any excess water and lie it on a cutting board on paper towels, and then just blot off the excess water. All right, so we smoked the other half of this brisket a couple weeks back, and the meat was really moist. So I think I can get away with trimming off some of this fat without running the risk of having a dry pastrami. So I'm just going to trim it up a bit. Not too much. I want to make sure that I'm not cutting off meat. Okay, so this is looking really good. Now, a lot of people don't know this, but pastrami is actually smoked corned beef. And after 2 weeks in the brine, our brisket is just that. It's a corned beef. You can take this, put it in a pot, boil it for a couple hours, add carrots, cabbage, and potatoes, and you'd have a delicious corned beef dinner. But we're here to make pastrami, and I'm going to bring it across the finish line. The relationship between pastrami and corned beef, however, actually brings up an interesting shortcut. Now, some people, when they make pastrami at home, actually skip the whole 14 days we've just spent curing the meat and just go out and buy a store-bought corned beef. I've never done it. I suspect that it's not going to be as good as the one we make from scratch, but I might just be being a snob. So what we're going to do is, on a going forward basis, I'm going to do to this corned beef everything I'm doing to this pastrami. I'm going to do it off camera so you don't have to see it twice. But at the end, we'll smoke them both, and then we'll compare the results. Mix up your pastrami spices. You start out with 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, 1 teaspoon of onion powder, 2 teaspoons of ground ginger, 2 tablespoons of mustard seed, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 3 tablespoons of cracked coriander peppers, and 4 tablespoons of cracked peppercorns. And you just mix it up. Okay, so I mentioned that we're going to use crushed black peppercorns. I want to take a second to talk about the 3 different types of pepper that you can readily find. First of all, there's table pepper, which is extremely fine. It's almost a powder. That's the kind you put in your pepper shakers. There's coarse black pepper, which I use frequently for rubs. You can also buy that. But then there's also crushed peppercorns. These are just cracked peppercorns, and what you do is you start out with a peppercorn and then you put it into a spice grinder, or in my case I use this coffee grinder, and I just hit pulse a couple times. Now these cracked black peppers are really what we're going to need to use for the pastrami. Now it's important to know the spice I gave you, the spice ratios I gave you were just that, they're ratios. You may have to double or triple that ratio to actually get enough spice to cover the pastrami. So let me show you how to basically apply the spices. Okay, so this meat's pretty moist. You could probably just apply the spices to it without having to add any bonding agent. But I sometimes use pepper. I always start when I'm spicing with the fat side down. I'm going to use a little bit of mustard. Just massage it in on both sides. Okay, so after you've got it covered with mustard, don't worry, the mustard doesn't impart flavor, it's just it serves as a bonding agent, it's great. So all you do now is just you're going to apply the spices liberally to the pastrami. You want a nice, thick covering on the outside of your pastrami. Again, I start with the fat side down because when I'm done spicing it, I want the fat side to be up. The other reason why I do this in an aluminum pan is it catches any of the extra spice. Since I'm going to be doing that other pastrami, I want to make sure that I save the spice as much as I can. So I got it really well covered. Looks good. All I'm going to do now is put it on a smoking rack, and we're going to put it in the smoker. All right, today we're smoking with pecan. It's going to have a nice mellow flavor. We're smoking at 225. We're going to put this in the smoker uncovered, just on the rack, for until it reaches about 165 degrees. All right, so it's been in the smoker now for 3 hours. It's at 165 degrees. We're going to take it out of the smoker and transfer it to some butcher paper. All right, so this is looking really good. What we're going to do is we're just going to wrap it up in butcher paper. Now, if you want, you can do, rather than using butcher paper, you can put this in an aluminum pan with aluminum foil over the top. Just put in about a half a cup of beef stock to keep it moist. So we wrap it up, fold the ends underneath each side, and then it's going to go back into the smoker until it reaches an internal temperature of 195 degrees. Okay, so they've been in the smoker about another hour and a half. They've reached 195 degrees. All right, so we're going to leave them wrapped in the butcher paper for 30 minutes to rest. Okay, so the pastramis have been resting now for 30 minutes. They're actually done. You could eat them right now, but what we're going to do is I'm going to actually wrap them up, put them in the refrigerator overnight, and then steam them tomorrow, because I think that makes a better result. So let's have a look-see. Oh, those look good. All right, so we'll wrap them up and we'll steam them tomorrow. All right, so now the pastramis have been wrapped in aluminum foil and plastic overnight. It's time to unwrap them and put them in a pan for steaming. Okay, so we're just gonna unwrap them, see how they fared. All right, that looks really good. So what we're gonna do is just unwrap them, take them out of the plastic and foil, and just put them into a pan with cooling racks at the bottom. All right, so after you get them in the pan, this is the one we've made from scratch, and this is the one we started out with, the store-bought corned beef. You're just gonna add beef stock to the pan. You can use water. I like beef stock. I'm not sure it makes a huge difference, but it does in my mind, so what the heck. And you're gonna fill it up with water up to the racks. All right, so after you get all the beef stock in there, we're just gonna wrap it with foil and put it into the smoker at 300 degrees until the internal temperature of the pastrami's reach 195 degrees. We may have to check it and add some more of the beef stock throughout the process, but it should take about 2 hours, maybe 3. All right, so it's been in the smoker for 2.5 hours. It heated up to 195 degrees. We let it rest for a half hour. So now it's time to open it up, see how it looks, and cut it. All right, let's have a look here. Oh wow, those both look really good. So this is the one we did, and this is the store-bought one. All right, let's cut it and have a look. All right, so the grain of the meat runs this way. When you're cutting a pastrami, you always want to make sure you cut against the grain. Wow, that looks really good. All right, let's cut it and have a taste. All right, one for me, one for the cameraman, and one for the dog. Yeah, it looks really good. Yeah, that's really fantastic. All right, so this is the one where we start out with the store-bought corned beef. Let's cut it. Let's see how that came out. It's really juicy. All right, let's give it a little slice. One for the cameraman, one for the dog, and one for me. So it looks a little fattier than the one we've done. Let's give it a taste. It's really good, actually. It's not as good as ours, but I suppose if you don't have the 14 days to kill and don't have space in your refrigerator, this is actually a perfectly acceptable alternative. All right. All right, thanks for watching the video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you like it, hit like. Please subscribe. I'm posting videos as often as I can. And one for the dog. Good boy.